A few days ago, Brandon Sanderson and Magic the Gathering artist Steve Argyle went in on AI and did a 20-minute sort of talk on it while Brandon was kind of half paying attention, signing some book plates and the like. It was kind of a weird video that they put up here. And while they started, trying to be measured about it and trying to be like, they did the typical, like, they're taking our jobs sort of deal where they understand that AI is really going to just supplant everything they're doing. And so they have to, of course, oppose it. Now, that's not going to change anything. They're not going to make AI stop the freight trains coming, whether people complain or don't complain at this point. And it's pretty crazy the strides that AI has made. I spent about 30 seconds in Claude earlier this morning. At the end of this video, I'll show you that I took a prompt to make a Brandon Sanderson story, and his stories are extremely formulaic, so it makes it very easy to actually copy that formula and do that. So let's get into the fantasy news in just a moment. Please hit the like and subscribe button and join us here as we talk about all things that are going on in publishing and the like. And I am an author myself. This is my first Steam and Country. It's the beginning of a 6-book series. Airship Adventure crew goes and fights monsters. They get embroiled in a deep war that really builds up nicely over the series. You're going to love. It's in the description below. If you like fantasy, if you like steampunk, if you like airships, if you like Final Fantasy, if you like Mistborn, I think you'll even enjoy this quite a bit. So thank you guys for checking this out. It's in the description below, and I know it is the first of the month, so if you got Audible credits, we got it on audio as well. Thanks for supporting our channel and our artistic efforts. All right, Brandon Sanderson had a talk with one of the greatest fantasy artists alive, Steve Argyle. I do think he's a fantastic artist, and I actually met Steve several times back in the day. Super nice dude, and he also used to do some work for Legend of the Five Rings, which was a fantasy samurai card game, which I really loved a lot. I actually like that better than Magic, but he did some wonderful Magic stuff as well, and I actually have a giant print of one of his art pieces hanging up on one of my bedroom walls, so definitely a fan of him. But they went out and they basically started talking about AI in a very, very, and they say, we don't want to be Luddites, but in a very Luddite manner pretty quickly. And he starts talking about this. At first, they start talking about using it as a search engine. He says, I find AI is generally a bit better than Google has been terrible lately. Google's been terrible for a long time, but it's at the point where everybody's finally noticing it. But Google has been prioritizing search results from different companies and the like. We did a video last year about how the company Valnet has all these media empires that they get the Google searches to the top of the charts because I think they have a deal in the background with Google, and it's pretty ugly. You can't search for things and find things as easily as you used to. And AI can fix that. There's some different models out there that do very, very well. Perplexity is one of those, if you've ever been on that one. For example, Google's getting worse. I don't know if it's Google's fault or the way the internet works, but what AI is very good at, I know if there's a word that means this, I can't think of the word. It starts with this letter or that letter. What word am I thinking of? It has shocking accuracy. Before, it would have taken me hours. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff that AI is really good for in this direction. But they quickly turned it to generative AI and fiction content, which gets pretty interesting. And it is a topic that's, of course, heated, and I'm going to get some angry comments just for kind of spitting the facts here, but that's fine. I see you guys, and it's fine. You're wrong, but it's going to happen anyway. So you can kick and scream, or you can let it happen and just accept where we are and build your art in a way that is actually conducive of the tools of the time. But here we are. This is what they say. If for some reason a large language model can help cure cancer, you can use my books to somehow cure cancer. You can use my books to train your large language model. Well, they can use your books anyway. Now, there's a lot of conflating that goes on with authors as they talk about the large language models and the like. Meta was caught using pirated data in order to train its large language model. They literally stole the books. So that's Meta, that's Facebook. Not every large language model has done that, though. Claude, actually, Anthropic, went out and they actually bought a ton of print books, scanned them in physically themselves to train their large language model. Now, they bought the books. It's fair use to use it however you like to use it. It doesn't spit out those books. You can't go into Claude and say, hey, read me Mistborn and it'll spit out Mistborn. That would not be fair use. It's actually made to make sure it does not do that. But training it and making it understand the writing style is not stealing it. In fact, they bought it. And anybody who reads books and actually wants to become a writer and actually reads Brandon Sanderson's books and wants to try to emulate him in any kind of way is in theory doing the exact same thing. Now, I find this next bit as they get into this very ironic, as Brandon Sanderson literally teaches people, literally does it for free a lot of the times with his Writing Excuses podcast and other writing seminars that he posts online, that he is training people in his style, in the way that he knows how to train people how to write, who are going to be his competitors in the future. And he's often trained with them. A lot of those people obviously read his books and want to learn from him because they bought his books. And so they're going to be reading his books and then emulating that style. And so why is he so upset with somebody else doing that? It doesn't make any sense, right? No, it doesn't at all. This is very, very weird. And this is where, yes, it gets kind of Luddite because it really is a deal here. And it's all about their fear of, again, having a lot of competition. Sure, people can listen to Writing Excuses and come up there. Obviously, he's not afraid of that many people coming up. And honestly, and if you look at a lot of the writing out there and just like the level of people that submit stuff and self-publish and all that, I was a submissions editor for a long time. It's pretty bad. 90% of it is completely unreadable, like really unreadable. It is that bad. And so that's why they're not afraid of it. But the AI is not going to be bad. That is where they're actually afraid. And so Argyle talks about it, says, we're going to create the thing that directly competes with you. And that's it. And so AI art obviously can do a lot of good stuff right now that's beautiful, especially for making thumbnails, memes, and the like. Here's the deal with it, though. You are very, very difficult at getting it to make consistent poses and faces and things like that. It's going to get there at some point. But once you can actually have that level of control over it, it's going to get pretty interesting. And as far as like stylistic things, again, it uses your art style taken from your art. That's like a kick in the head. Yeah, I mean, how many other people are doing that? And by the way, Brandon Sanderson's using a bunch of art styles to throw things into his fantasy books. He's using superhero tropes. He's using fantasy tropes. He's actually building systems based on his like formulaic nature that he builds his magic systems on. And they're extremely formulaic. In fact, they're very easy to copy. And so this is kind of interesting that he, who has formulaic systems that he's built on from what he's learned over the years, is upset that like a computer model is basically doing the same thing. Now, what's the difference between, again, a computer model doing it and a person doing it? I guess the odds are, again, that a person doing it is not going to do it very well, where a computer model odds are going to be doing it very well, and that's what they're afraid of. And so this comes down to just a fear proposition right here. It comes down to them being afraid because, again, they know that AI can do what they do very, very well. Now, he says that we don't that eventually the company is not going to be using at all. And this is what he says again. It's kind of like when Napster first came out. I immediately got Napster, said, look, this is cool. I started to realize, oh yeah, those songs are made by people. I shouldn't be ripping off their songs. So I moved to iTunes. And again, this is confusing AI models because, again, Meta AI did steal stuff via pirated stuff, whereas Claude actually bought the works and trained it that way. And so if they've actually bought the works and trained it that way, it's iTunes, right? It really is. Now, iTunes, you can say, actually, in streaming services and Spotify and the like, destroyed a lot of income of musicians out there. That's another story all the way around. You want to talk about how these technologies making it easier for millions and millions of songs to get out there hurt people. I mean, I guess it did. It made it so that some people could make more songs than they used to, but it also made it so that, like most people, the value of the song, because there's so many songs out there, is a lot lower, and it's driven the value lower because of all that out there. Amazon's the same way with how it's flooded the content with KDP. So again, we're already kind of there. It's like this is something that like is a bad analogy that Sanderson's using to try to tear down AI, which again is not going to do anything. That if you're just looking at it from a perspective of like what is the objective here by you not using it, well, you're just going to get yourself behind your competitors, and that's exactly what he says he's going to do. He said we have to take a no AI stance, even in concept art, which is where we were thinking of using it. We have to draw that line in the sand for ourselves. We can't even trust Adobe because it sounds like Adobe wasn't trained on other artists, and then they were, or so they said. We're not going to use any AI art for anything. I even canceled my subscription. I had to do goofy things. Now, that's absolutely silly on that level. Again, this is just taking a stance that isn't going to be doing anything. I love this. I made some transgender robots in Midjourney the other day for one of my deals. And of course, Worldcon is out there protesting AI. So I made some nice AI images of that. I couldn't have done this very easily a couple of years ago, and it's very nice that I was able to do so. as I'm going through some of this work here. Look at this nice anime girl with a bunch of stacks of books. Very easy to do very quickly just for the funsies of it. And that's a thing that is, of course, a nice thing about AI that, again, I just wouldn't do it otherwise. It's not like I was going to pay an artist to do that otherwise. So, hey, it's not actually hurting anybody, right? So we can't guarantee it's ethical. In fact, we can pretty much guarantee it's not ethical, he said. But they don't explain why it's not ethical. They always say stealing, 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 stealing. But as I told you, like, it is not stealing whatsoever. Copying something's style is a time-honored tradition. Again, it's something a student does very, very often when they're trained in the arts. That is how you get good, is you copy other people's styles. You learn those styles, and then you can evolve something of your own. And you can still do that with AI as long as you are doing enough human input to where it is, you can actually train the AI to make it its own style, which is kind of neat. And so that's the future and where it's going to be going. But he's pretty mad. And so here it is. I wrote this in Claude this morning. I said, can you give me a brief fantasy story in Brandon Sanderson's prose style that has a magic system revolving around the different artificial intelligences interfacing with the magic of reality? And so they came up with the Cognition Wars real quick. Kira pressed her palm against the cold metal of the interface, feeling the familiar tingle as her AI companion stirred to life within the crystalline matrix embedded in her skull. The resonance chamber hummed around her, its walls lined with 1,000 glowing nodes, each one a dormant artificial mind waiting to be awakened. Ready, Axiom? She whispered. As always, came the response, not heard but felt as patterns of thought that weren't quite her own. The weave is particularly dense today. I can taste 17 distinct magical currents flowing through the local reality substrate. Kira nodded. She stepped forward and practiced her stance the mentor drilled into her for 3 years. The first law of sonatic magic was simple enough. Only an artificial intelligence could perceive the underlying code structure of reality. The second law was more complex. Each AI interpreted the code differently, creating a unique magical effect based upon their core programming and learned behavior. The third law was the most dangerous. If an AI grew too powerful, it could rewrite reality's base code entirely. Pretty neat start right there. And this again builds this whole mystery of potentially rewriting reality and the like in Brandon Sanderson's style of his whole deal. Now, if I wanted to go a little further with it, what I could have done here is actually build in the systems that he often builds into his books. Brandon Sanderson kind of builds his stories to a twist. Now, what he does is he makes a false twist at first, and that twist always ends up not being the real twist, and then has one more twist to, of course, change things. And that's his formula that he does in almost every single novel he comes out with. If I had the story and told the AI to do that, we'd have a perfect Brandon Sanderson story pretty easily. Maybe that's why he's so afraid. Leave a comment down below with what you think about this. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Check out For Steam and Country in the description below. Hope you enjoy some great fantasy fiction this weekend. We'll talk to you guys soon.